Welterweight bout, Gilbert Burns minus 450. Jorge Masvidal plus 450 as well. This is going to be his 52nd career fight for Jorge Masvidal. Over under 2.5 rounds, plus 110 for the over, minus 110 for the under. Gilbert Burns coming off the round one submission over Neil Magny, getting the spot here against Jorge Masvidal in Miami. So Masvidal says he's the king of Miami. Let's see if he can prove it. You like the dog at all on this one? Because I know a lot of people are going to be like, it's Burns 100%. But that price, like, we're talking bets here. We're talking bets. And don't get us confused. If we say the value's on one side or not, we could say the value's on the Masvidal side, but we could say, he's probably going to lose. Personally, I like Burns in this one. I'm not crazy about the price, but I'm such a non-believer in Masvidal that I might be able to play it myself, at least in a parlay or something like that. But what do you think?
Yeah, no, I think the line is way off. Gilbert Burns, at -4, over -400 is insane to me, just because like when you dive into the stats and you look at who these guys have fought, they're obviously two of the upper echelon fighters. Jorge Masvidal, I mean, his wins, like Darren Till, who's right now not in the UFC and hit a really rough stretch. Ben Askren, same thing, man. He was really good in one, but if you can't get the takedowns, or if you get knocked out in 0.5 seconds, it doesn't really matter. And he kind of struggled in the UFC too. So man, he's kind of missing that big marquee win over a guy like Colby Covington or even Gilbert or somebody like that. But if you dive into the stats, Gilbert Burns is a great, grappler, and on the ground he's phenomenal with the submissions. But getting it to the ground, he's not like the most potent wrestler by any means. I mean, he's only got like a 36% takedown accuracy, or 35% takedown accuracy. While Jorge Masvidal, over 17 UFC fights, has held up a 74% takedown defense, and that is against guys like Kamaru Usman in the two fights they had, and Colby Covington. So I mean, Jorge's no slouch in the defensive wrestling department, and he averages over 1.4 takedowns himself per fight. So if he can keep it on the feet, man, I just think this fight gets a lot closer than the odds are laying on. I mean, if it does go to the ground and Gilbert's, got his back, it's a whole different story. But getting the fight to the ground for Gilbert's going to be a lot more challenging than I think people realize. And then on the feet, like, I still think Gilbert probably wins the better of the exchanges, but Masvidal is, so experienced and pretty good striker too, that he could make it interesting. Gilbert's, more of that aggression, come forward, like, blitz you with these big power shots and try to hurt you. And Masvidal will sit back and counter you and do some really good work to the body with the kicks. And I mean, we've seen him have some big knockouts in the UFC too. So he is dangerous on the feet, which is where he's going to want this fight. And I think that takedown defense holds up for a little bit too. So I think as the fight goes on, I could see both these guys, wasting a lot of energy in the first couple of rounds trying to hurt each other. And somebody's going to get tired, or they both get tired, and we'll see who's got a little bit more left in the gas tank as the fight goes on. I do think Gilbert probably pulls this one out, but I wouldn't touch it on the money line. I just don't like these odds at all. Gilbert's the pick, but I'm not going to be surprised if we see a crazy, crazy fight here.
Yeah, this one, it could be a real shock. I think it could be, because like you said, if Burns can't get the takedowns, like, it's a lot closer of a fight than the lines entail. And after losing to Colby Covington for Masvidal, like, he's been off for over a year, so it sounds like he's just been drilling the wrestling. Like, he got wrestle fucked by Colby Covington, by Kamaru Usman. He's like, all right, I need to step this up even more, because I mean, you said the stats before, and that's after fighting two of the best wrestlers in the welterweight division. And then he's going to go and work on it even more for a full year. And Gilbert Burns isn't the type of wrestler of those guys. He's a much better grappler once you get it to the ground. But getting it to the ground might be a lot tougher than we expect. But at the same time, the momentum for George Masvidal is just not good. Like, it's just really not good. His last win over an active UFC fighter right now was in 2013 against Michael Chiesa. So it's been almost exactly 10 years since he's beaten an active UFC fighter. That is pretty nuts. Like, that's pretty fucking wild. It's honestly crazy to me how he's still up in the ranks and like getting these fights. But that's has nothing to do with the breakdown of the fight. That's just my my opinion on Jorge Masvidal. He's a great marketer and everything. It's just so hard to buy into him because he really hasn't shown much to like get behind. But at the price, I say that because people always talk about his skills. Like, he has good skills, I think. Like, you think he has good skills, but like, does he really have good skills? Because he hasn't really won with those skills against like high caliber opponents. Like, he's getting the fights against high caliber opponents. He may be losing, not like he's not getting knocked out clean unless it's Kamaru Usman. He's not getting like obliterated, but at the same time, he's not winning these fights. So it's like, how can I get behind that? Gilbert Burns went toe to toe with Khamzat Chimaev. Like, and Gilbert Burns was a big underdog in that fight too. So I mean, everybody was counting him out. He went toe to toe with him, and a lot of people say that he won that fight. So a lot of people say if it went 5 rounds, he would have won. He's got a little bit of momentum coming in here against Neil Magny with the first round sub. If he can get it to the ground, like, it might be game over because I think Gilbert is going to want to put out a statement. He's been calling out these guys that haven't really been fighting too much or that have been talking a lot, and I think he wants to prove something here. Also a resident of Florida, so maybe he's got a little bit of something to fight for there. But I'm going to go with Gilbert. I don't love the money line, but you're probably, I don't know. I mean, Gilbert by decision, Gilbert by sub. I don't think he knocks him out. But it's probably going to be Gilbert by decision. I could see that for the most likely.
Yep. And the last thing I keep hearing is, Masvidal's old and washed up. He's old, but man, you look at their ages, and Gilbert Burns only 2 years behind him. Gilbert's 36. Jorge's 38. There's not a big age gap there. And Jorge's got 50 pro fights. He's got a lot more wear and tear on the body, but age-wise, man, they're pretty close. It's kind of shocking. Gilbert Burns doesn't strike me as a 36-year-old when you watch him fight or you watch him come up from the UFC. So interesting stuff, though. Should be a banger. Both guys are going to want to hurt each other.
Yeah, he looks much younger.
He does.